The lunch rush at Big Bill's Texas Grill was hitting its peak when William Big Bill Henderson noticed the man standing at the entrance. In a restaurant full of clean-cut businessmen and well-dressed families, this visitor stood out like a sore thumb. His leather jacket was worn and patched, his gray beard unkempt, his jeans faded and torn at the knees. He carried a motorcycle helmet under one arm and moved with a slight limp as he made his way to an empty booth in the corner. Big Bill, all 300 pounds of him squeezed into an expensive suit, took one look at the man and decided he was trouble. In his 20 years of running what he considered the finest establishment in Austin, he developed an eye for the kind of customers who'd cause problems. And this guy, with his rough appearance and the smell of motor oil clinging to him, was definitely not the caliber of patron Big Bill wanted in his restaurant. As he marched over to confront the unwelcome visitor, Big Bill had no idea he was about to insult a man who'd earned 2 Purple Hearts, a Bronze Star, and the undying loyalty of a brotherhood that stretched across the entire state of Texas. The man had just settled into the booth, placing his helmet on the seat beside him, when Big Bill arrived, looming over the table like a storm cloud in a 10-gallon hat. The contrast between them couldn't have been starker. Big Bill in his custom-tailored suit and gold watch, the visitor in his road-worn leathers and scuffed boots. I'm curious, where are you watching this story unfold today? Whether you're in a big city or small town, drop your location in the comments below. Let's see how far this message about respect and brotherhood can travel across America and beyond. "Excuse me," Big Bill said, his voice carrying the kind of false politeness that barely masked contempt. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The man looked up, his weathered face calm but confused. "I'm sorry? I just sat down. Haven't even ordered yet." "Yes, well, that won't be necessary. This is a family establishment, and we have certain standards." Big Bill gestured vaguely at the man's appearance. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the truck stop down the highway. They're more accommodating to your type." The man's jaw tightened slightly, but his voice remained steady. "My type? Look, I don't want any trouble. Just leave quietly and we won't have a problem." "I'm not here to cause trouble, sir. Just wanted a meal. I've been writing since dawn, and—" "I don't care about your sob story," Big Bill interrupted. "This isn't a shelter. This is a respectable business. Now, are you going to leave on your own, or do I need to call the police?" Several nearby diners had stopped eating to watch the confrontation. A few pulled out their phones, sensing drama. One woman whispered to her husband, "That's awful. The poor man just wanted lunch." The man in leather slowly stood up, picking up his helmet. He reached into his jacket, and Big Bill stepped back, his hand moving toward the phone in his pocket. But instead of anything threatening, the man pulled out a small, worn photograph. He looked at it for a moment, then carefully placed it back in his jacket. "You know," he said quietly, 47 years ago I was in a jungle on the other side of the world, fighting for people's freedom, including yours. The freedom to run a business, the freedom to choose who you serve, and the freedom to be a judgmental ass, if that's what you want to be." Big Bill's face reddened. "Get out. Now, or I'm calling the cops." The man nodded slowly. "I'm going. But you should know something. That sob story you don't want to hear. It includes the part where I spent 3 days in a POW camp after my helicopter was shot down. The part where I carried my best friend 2 miles through enemy territory after he stepped on a landmine. The part where I came home to people spitting on me and calling me a baby killer." He paused at the door. "But you're right. I guess I'm not good enough for your family establishment." As he walked out, he passed a young server named Maria, who'd been watching with tears in her eyes. She whispered, "I'm so sorry, sir." "Don't be," he replied. "I've faced worse than him." Big Bill turned to address the dining room, his politician's smile back in place. "Sorry for the disturbance, folks. We have to maintain standards, you understand. Can't have vagrants disturbing our valued customers." Most people returned to their meals, uncomfortable but unwilling to confront the owner. But Maria pulled out her phone and quickly typed a message to her boyfriend, Carlos, who worked at the Harley-Davidson dealership. "You won't believe what just happened. Big Bill just kicked out a Vietnam vet for looking too rough. Said he wasn't good enough for the restaurant. Carlos's response was immediate. What did the guy look like? Maria described the man, and Carlos's next message made her heart skip. Oh shit, that sounds like Tom Wolfman Morrison. He's the president of the Rolling Thunder chapter here. This is going to be bad. 20 minutes later, Big Bill was in his office, counting the lunch receipts and congratulating himself on maintaining the restaurant's high standards when he heard it. A low rumble that seemed to shake the windows, then another, and another. The sound grew louder, multiplying, until it was a roar that drowned out everything else. He rushed to the window and felt his blood turn to ice. Motorcycles, dozens of them, all pulling into his parking lot. Harley-Davidsons, Indians, Hondas, a sea of chrome and steel filling every available space. The riders were dismounting, all wearing leather jackets with military patches, Vietnam veteran rockers, and motorcycle club emblems. His manager, Derek, burst into the office. "Bill, we've got a situation. There's like 50 bikers out there, and they're all coming in." "Call the police," Big Bill said, his voice cracking slightly. "I tried. They said unless the bikers are breaking the law, there's nothing they can do. And technically, they're just customers." Big Bill watched through his office window as the bikers formed up in the parking lot. They weren't yelling or making threats. They were organized, disciplined, military precision in civilian clothes. At their head was a mountain of a man with a gray beard down to his chest and arms like tree trunks. The front door chimed as they entered, single file, filling every available seat in the restaurant. Those who couldn't find seats stood along the walls. Within minutes, Big Bill's Texas grill was completely occupied by Vietnam veterans in motorcycle leathers. The big man with the gray beard approached the hostess stand where Derek stood frozen. "Table for 53, please," he said politely, "though it looks like we'll have to split up." We're actually pretty full." "No problem," the man said. "We'll wait. We've got nothing but time." Big Bill finally emerged from his office, trying to project authority despite his shaking hands. He approached the gray-bearded man. "I'm going to have to ask you all to leave. This is clearly an organized disturbance." "Disturbance?" The man's voice was calm but carried weight. "We're just here for lunch. Heard this was a family establishment with high standards. We wanted to see these standards for ourselves." "This is harassment. I'll sue." Sue veterans for eating lunch? A man with a prosthetic leg spoke up from a nearby table. "That'll play well in the press." The gray-bearded man extended his hand. "I'm Mike Bear Thompson, president of Rolling Thunder, Texas." Chapter 23. "You kicked out one of our brothers about 45 minutes ago. Tom Morrison. Said he wasn't good enough for your establishment." Big Bill didn't take the offered hand. "That man was clearly a vagrant. His appearance was disturbing my customers." "That vagrant," Bear said, his voice hardening, "has 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars, and a Silver Star. He spent 14 months in Vietnam, 6 of those in heavy combat. He's got more courage in his little finger than you've got in your whole body. I don't care if he's got a Medal of Honor, no shoes, no shirt, no service. And I decide who—" "He was wearing shoes and a shirt," another biker interrupted. "He just didn't meet your dress code of rich enough." Maria appeared with a tray of water glasses, which she began distributing to the bikers. Big Bill glared at her. "Maria, don't serve them." She looked him straight in the eye. "They're customers, Mr. Henderson. You always said we serve all customers with respect." "You're fired." "Good," she shot back. "I don't want to work for someone who disrespects veterans anyway." Bear pulled out his phone. "You know, Bill, can I call you Bill? Modern technology is amazing. See, when Tom left here, he was pretty upset. Not about the food, he never got to try it, but about being judged for his appearance. So he called me, and I called a few friends, and they called a few friends." He gestured around the packed restaurant. "Vietnam vets have a network, Bill. We look out for each other. Have to, since people like you sure don't." One of the bikers, a man with visible burn scars on his face, spoke up. "I got these scars when my tank hit a mine. Lost 3 friends that day. But apparently I'm too ugly for your family establishment too." Another stood up, rolling up his sleeve to reveal a prosthetic arm. Lost this in '68. Guess that makes me undesirable too. RPG attack Tet offensive, another said, pointing to his scarred throat. Can barely speak above a whisper. That disturbing enough for you? Big Bill was sweating now, his expensive suit suddenly feeling too tight. This is intimidation. No, Bear said firmly. Intimidation is when 19-year-old kids get drafted and sent to die in a jungle. Intimidation is coming home to a country that hates you for doing what you were ordered to do. This ? This is accountability. Derek cleared his throat. Mr. Henderson, perhaps we should— Shut up, Derek. Big Bill's composure was cracking. I want all of you out, now, or I'll— You'll what? A new voice came from the entrance. Everyone turned to see Tom Morrison standing there, the man who'd been kicked out. But now he was in his full Rolling Thunder regalia, his vest displaying his military decorations and motorcycle patches. You'll call the police on a bunch of veterans having lunch? Tom walked through the crowd of his brothers who reached out to pat his shoulders or shake his hand. He stopped in front of Big Bill. You know what the funny thing is? I wasn't even going to make a big deal about it. I've been treated worse. But these men, my brothers, they decided you needed a lesson in respect. I don't need lessons from— Yes, Tom interrupted, you do. See, when I was 20 years old, I was crew chief on a Huey helicopter. My job was to keep my crew alive while we flew into hot LZs to extract wounded Marines. One day, we took heavy fire, lost our hydraulics, and crashed in the jungle. My pilot was killed on impact. Co-pilot had a broken back. Door gunner was unconscious with a head wound. And me? I had shrapnel in my leg and 3 broken ribs. The restaurant had gone completely silent. Even the kitchen staff had come out to listen. I could have left them, could have tried to escape and evade on my own, better chance of survival. But that's not what you do. You don't leave your brothers behind. So I dragged them, one by one, to a defendable position, set up a perimeter, used our last radio battery to call in our position. Then, I held off the NVA for 6 hours with an M16 and the door gun I'd pulled from the wreck. Tom pulled out the photograph he'd looked at earlier. It showed 4 young men in flight suits standing in front of a helicopter. These were my crew, Jimmy, Marcus, and Steve. I was the only one who made it home. He looked directly at Big Bill. So when you tell me I'm not good enough for your restaurant, that my appearance offends your sensibilities, you're not just insulting me. You're insulting their memory. You're insulting every man and woman who put on a uniform and did things that haunt them every night so people like you could live in comfort and safety. Big Bill's face had gone from red to pale. I didn't know. Of course you didn't, Bear said, because you didn't ask, you just judged. You saw an old man in worn leathers and decided he was beneath you. Maria returned from the back with her now former co-workers. Several of them had taken off their aprons. Mr. Henderson, one of them said, we quit too. We're not working for someone who treats veterans like garbage. This is ridiculous, Big Bill exploded. You can't all quit. I'll sue every one of you. Bill. A new voice, quiet but commanding, came from the kitchen doorway. An elderly woman in chef's white stepped out. It was Rosaria, the head chef who'd been with the restaurant since it opened. My husband was in Vietnam, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. He never came home. Every time a veteran walks through that door, I see him, and today you dishonored his memory. She untied her apron and placed it on the counter. I quit too. The exodus that followed was swift. Within minutes, most of the staff had walked out, leaving Big Bill standing in his restaurant full of bikers with no one to cook or serve. Bear looked around at the situation. Well, this is awkward. We came here for lunch, but it seems you don't have any staff. He paused. Unless. Several of the bikers stood up. One said, I ran a mess hall in Da Nang. I can cook. Another added, I tended bar for 20 years after I got back. I can handle drinks. I waited tables to put myself through college on the GI Bill, another chimed in. Tom looked at Big Bill with a slight smile. Looks like you've got volunteer staff. Question is, Are you going to let veterans run your kitchen for the afternoon, or are you going to close down? Big Bill looked around at the dozens of eyes watching him. His insurance would cover closing for a day, but the damage to his reputation if this story got out, and in the age of social media, it definitely would get out. Fine, but I'm not paying. We don't want your money, Tom said. We just want to prove a point. What followed was one of the most unusual lunch services in Texas restaurant history. Vietnam veterans took over Big Bill's Texas Grill, with some cooking, some serving, and others helping wherever needed. The few regular customers who came in were treated to the sight of bikers in leather jackets, professionally waiting tables and preparing food. Word spread quickly through social media. Vietnam vets take over restaurant after owner, kicks out veteran, went viral within hours. People started showing up just to see what was happening and to support the veterans. Bear took over as temporary manager, organizing the volunteers with military efficiency. Tom worked the host stand, greeting everyone with a dignity that Big Bill had never shown. The vagrant Big Bill had kicked out was now the face of his restaurant, treating every customer with respect, regardless of their appearance or status. In the kitchen, the volunteer cooks prepared simple but hearty meals. "This isn't fancy," one of them announced, "but it's made with pride." Big Bill retreated to his office, watching his restaurant run better without him than it ever had with him. The irony wasn't lost on him. The people he deemed unworthy were proving more capable than his regular staff. Around 2 p.m., a news crew showed up. The reporter interviewed Tom at the entrance. "Mr. Morrison, what message do you hope to send today?" Tom thought for a moment. "Just that you can't judge people by their appearance. That scruffy biker might be a war hero. That homeless person might be a veteran struggling with PTSD. That quiet guy in the corner might have sacrificed more for this country than you can imagine. Everyone deserves respect until they prove otherwise. Big Bill proved otherwise today." "What about Mr. Henderson? What would you say to him?" "I'd say he's lucky. He gets to learn this lesson in his restaurant, surrounded by forgiving people. We learned harder lessons in harder places, and we came home to a country that often treated us worse than he did today. But we survived that too. We're survivors, and we stick together." Inside, Big Bill watched the interview on his phone, each word hitting like a punch. He'd built his reputation on being a pillar of the community, a successful businessman. Now he was becoming a viral villain, the face of disrespect toward veterans. Around 3 p.m., something unexpected happened. Regular customers who'd heard about the situation began arriving with donations. "For the veterans," they said, "and for Maria and the staff who stood up for what's right." A local veterans organization showed up with a check. "We heard what happened. This is for anyone who lost their job today for defending a veteran." By 4 p.m., thousands of dollars had been raised. Bear organized it all, making sure Maria and the other staff who'd quit would be taken care of while they looked for new jobs. As the afternoon wore on, Big Bill's phone rang constantly. His lawyer, his insurance company, his investors, all wanting to know what was happening. The story had gone national. Big Bill's shame was trending on Twitter. Finally, around 5 p.m., Big Bill emerged from his office. The restaurant was still packed, veterans still cooking and serving, customers still arriving to show support. He approached Bear at the host stand. "I want to apologize," he said stiffly. Bear studied him. "You want to apologize because you're sorry or because this is destroying your business?" Big Bill struggled with the honesty. "Both," he finally admitted. "At least you're honest about that. But I'm not the one you need to apologize to." Big Bill found Tom in the kitchen, helping prep vegetables for dinner service. "Mr. Morrison, Tom, I owe you an apology." Tom looked up from his work. "Do you? Or do you just want this to go away?" "I dot." Big Bill paused. "I don't know. Maybe both. I just know I was wrong." "Were you wrong to kick me out or wrong to judge me in the first place?" Big Bill considered this. "Both. I saw your appearance and made assumptions. I've probably done it 100 times before. You were just the first one who had an army of brothers to call on." Everyone should have people willing to stand up for them, Tom said. That's what we fought for. Not just freedom for people who look respectable, but freedom for everyone. What can I do to make this right? Tom set down his knife. You can start by really understanding what you did. I've been refused service before. Been called names, been spit on, been denied jobs. Each time it chips away a little piece of your soul. The physical wounds from war heal, mostly. But the wounds from coming home to rejection and judgment, those never quite go away. Big Bill felt shame wash over him in a way he'd never experienced. I'm sorry. Truly. What can I do? Bear had walked over to listen. Well, for starters, you can implement a new policy. No discrimination based on appearance, ever. Second, you can make a substantial donation to local veterans organizations. Third, you can hire veterans, not just as charity, but because, as you've seen today, they're damn good workers. And, Tom added, you can remember that respect costs nothing but means everything. Big Bill nodded. Done. All of it. And one more thing, Bear said. Tom comes in here anytime he wants, eats whatever he wants on the house, for life. Of course, Tom shook his head. I don't want free food. I just want to be treated like a human being. As evening approached, the veterans began organizing to leave. They'd made their point, and most had long rides home. But before they left, they did something that stunned Big Bill. They cleaned everything. Kitchens, dining room, bathrooms, all spotless. Always leave a place better than you found it, one explained. Military training never leaves you. Maria returned with several of the staff who'd quit. Mr. Henderson, we've been talking. If you're serious about changing, if you'll implement the policies Bear suggested, we'll come back. Big Bill nodded eagerly. Yes, absolutely. And Maria, I'm sorry. You showed more courage today than I've shown in my entire life. As the bikers prepared to leave, customers applauded. Many shook hands, exchanged numbers, promised to stay in touch. The story had brought the community together in an unexpected way. Tom was the last to leave. He stood at the door, looking back at the restaurant. Big Bill approached him one final time. Tom, I know I can't undo what I did, but I promise you, this place will never turn away another veteran, or anyone else based on their appearance. Tom studied him. You know, Bill, the hardest part about coming home from war isn't the memories. It's not the injuries. It's feeling like you don't belong in the world you fought to protect. Today, you made me feel that way again. But my brothers, they reminded me that I do belong. We all do. He put on his helmet. I might come back sometime. Order that lunch I never got, but not for a while. Some wounds need time. As Tom walked to his bike, the remaining veterans started their engines in unison. The roar was deafening, a sound of solidarity and strength. They pulled out in formation, Tom leading, disappearing down the Texas highway as the sun began to set. Big Bill stood in his empty restaurant, surrounded by the ghosts of his assumptions and prejudices. On the wall, someone had left a note. Everyone has a story. Everyone deserves respect. Rolling Thunder. Chapter 23. In the weeks that followed, Big Bill's Texas grill transformed. True to his word, he implemented all the suggested changes. He hired several veterans, including one as an assistant manager. He donated $50,000 to local veterans organizations. He instituted a monthly Veterans Eat Free Day. Maria was promoted to general manager with full authority to ensure no customer was ever discriminated against again. The restaurant's walls were decorated with photos and stories of local veterans, turning the space into a tribute to service and sacrifice. 3 months later, on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, Tom Morrison walked in. He was wearing the same leather jacket, the same worn jeans. Maria saw him first and smiled broadly. "Tom, welcome back," he nodded, a small smile on his weathered face. "Figured I'd give it another try." Big Bill himself came out of the kitchen where he'd been learning to cook from his veteran chef. "Tom, I'm glad you're here. Just want a quiet lunch, Bill? Nothing special." Everything on the menu is special now, Bill said. We've got a new chef, Maureen, makes the best chicken fried steak in Texas. Tom sat at the same booth where the whole incident had started. This time, no one stared, no one judged. He was just another customer enjoying a meal. Halfway through his lunch, the door chimed and Bear walked in with several other Rolling Thunder members. They joined Tom at his booth, the conversation flowing easily. Big Bill watched from across the restaurant, seeing what he'd missed that first day. Not a vagrant or a troublemaker, but a hero surrounded by brothers who would never let him stand alone. Later, as Tom prepared to leave, he stopped at the register where Big Bill was working. He'd instituted a policy that he would work the floor at least once a week to stay connected with customers. "How was everything?" Bill asked. "Good," Tom said simply. "Really good." As he walked to his bike, Maria called after him. "See you next week?" Tom turned back with a genuine smile. "Yeah, see you next week." The restaurant that had once rejected him had become a place of welcome. The man who had judged him had learned to see, and the brotherhood that had stood up for him had shown that sometimes the most powerful force for change isn't anger or revenge, but the simple act of standing together and demanding respect. Big Bill's Texas Grill still operates today. On the wall near the entrance hangs a plaque that reads, "This establishment proudly serves all who enter with respect and dignity. We especially honor those who served our nation. In memory of the lesson learned from Rolling Thunder, Chapter 23. And every Tuesday and Friday, weather permitting, an old biker in worn leathers parks his Harley outside and comes in for lunch. He's always treated with the respect he earned long ago in a jungle on the other side of the world, and with the dignity every human being deserves." The story you've just witnessed reminds us that heroes don't always wear uniforms or arrive in limousines. Sometimes they wear worn leather and ride motorcycles. Sometimes they're the people we overlook, dismiss, or judge unfairly. Every person you meet has a story, and many have sacrificed more than we can imagine. The brotherhood displayed by the Rolling Thunder Riders shows us that standing up for each other isn't just about motorcycle clubs or military service. It's about human dignity and the courage to demand respect for those who've earned it. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to remember that respect costs nothing but means everything. And I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city, state, or country in the comments below. Let's create a global map of places where veterans are honored and respected. Remember, the next time you see someone who doesn't fit your idea of respectable, take a moment to wonder what battles they've fought, what sacrifices they've made, and what stories they carry. Treat everyone with dignity. You never know when you're standing before a hero.